Joining us for today's presentation, Getting More from Cloud Data Assets, Business Continuity, Data Science, and Performance. Insight is a Fortune 500 solutions integrator supporting clients through any kind of digital transformation, including cloud migrations, application modernization, data and AI roadmaps, and cybersecurity. Our industry expertise is complemented by our deep partner ecosystem, giving clients end-to-end support. With that said, we would like to thank our sponsors for today's conversation, Google and NetApp. At this time, I'll turn it over to our presenters, Carm Taglienti, a distinguished engineer at Insight and director of our multi-cloud product portfolio, and Kent Christensen, practice director for cloud and data center at Insight. Carm, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jen. Great. Well, welcome everybody. And today, Kent and I would like to talk through our topic area here. So we're going to be covering how to leverage NetApp and Google in data science and AI workloads. And fundamentally, we just want to make it more of a practical conversational style presentation where we discuss what are some of the benefits and features so that you can take away from this the knowledge about how to actually approach this kind of a workload and how to create benefit and synergy within your environments. One of the things that we would like to talk about as well is to how can you get better performance than you would get in the cloud, for example, especially around I/O. So one of the challenges that we have, especially from a data science perspective or even an analytics perspective, is the fact that in the cloud sometimes I/O isn't as good as we may want it to be, especially when we're doing things like training data models or accessing data in order to be able to process it for analytics workloads. The other thing is that we want to ensure that we can increase cost efficiencies, because if we think about the data assets that we have available to us that might exist on premises, how are we going to get them to the cloud? How are we going to access them? How are we going to make them available for the kinds of processing that we want to be able to do, whether it's analytics, reporting needs, or AI needs, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But in general, that's sort of setting the stage for our discussion today, where we want to make sure that we understand what are these capabilities, how do I take advantage of NetApp's capabilities that you may already have or have purchased, or how can we, and this is an interesting part, is how can we leverage some of the data assets that we have made available through business continuity to be able to effectively take a snapshot of that data and then use it for our reporting and analytics workloads. So that'll be an interesting conversation as we move forward. We're going to talk a little bit about as well the data fabric, and I'll pass it off to Kent when we get to that in just a second. But in general, we want to make sure that we can talk about what are some of the different characteristics of the file types that you might have available, what are some of the assets that you might want to move into the cloud, and what are some of the different variable data types that we can take advantage of. And if I talk about it from a data science or a BI workload, we're going to be interested in all of these data sources. And so all of these types of data can be supported by the data fabric. And probably most importantly, as we think about that level of variety, is how can we make them available in the cloud without having to move all of this information into the cloud specifically, because we know how difficult that can be. So I'll pass it off to Kent, and Kent can talk about the data fabric, and then from there, we'll talk about some specific use cases and how we can take advantage of this.
Sure. Thanks, Carm. I think this is a great subject to talk about because we've watched this concept of the intersection of cloud and data management and these key workloads evolve. And generally speaking, it's a great combination, GCP with the NetApp solution that solves a lot of problems that the cloud providers had. So the thing that we'll zero in on from NetApp and Google is called Cloud Volumes for GCP. And the reason that GCP decided to use the NetApp technology in Cloud Volumes for GCP, which is their product, is because they didn't have a way to solve the performance problem in the cloud file systems that existed today. Now, they're not alone. You'll find a similar solution at Azure. You'll find a similar solution at AWS. But the challenge they had was that cloud, being a massive shared model, was at its, to a certain extent, a best effort. And data analysts and data scientists, et cetera, would sometimes get frustrated that they might have run something on a data center, let's say on a NetApp system, and got very consistent high-performance results. And when they tried to bring their workload to a public cloud, they got inconsistent timing, SLOs, and maybe not the same performance. So that's how we got to this spot where Google said, in order to get the workloads that Carm you're going to talk about later into the cloud successfully without that level of frustration, was to leverage this technology. So let me step back a bit and talk a little bit about what NetApp does. And the fact is that these services that I'll describe very briefly can exist anywhere. They actually, of course, originated in data centers when NetApp would sell an organization a NetApp array, and it would have these services that we'll call premium or standard, et cetera. And people would run mission critical workloads like databases or AI or analytics, and it was great. And given the fact that a lot of those use file formats, that was a dominating position for NetApp. What they did a few years ago was start putting those services in the cloud, and that's kind of what we're going to look at, is saying, if I ran a workload in my data center running on a NetApp array, and I was used to a certain level of performance, how would I get that in a public cloud? And the fact is today, you can get the exact same service level with the exact same performance levels in GCP using Cloud Volumes as you were getting on-prem. And then the third option is if you wanted to put it next to the cloud, this intermediate, sometimes you can put that service in, and what we call that is if you're consuming NetApp as a service, instead of buying an array, you can consume a Keystone subscription on-prem, let's say in an Equinix or other like data center next to the cloud, which just says your data is in a location that you know and you're using cloud resources. So that whole picture together is actually called the data fabric, that says you can pick the service level, you can pick the location, private data center, hybrid, next to cloud, in public cloud, and get a consistent level of performance for your data across all of those. So that was a lot. Don't try to read all this, but ultimately when people are looking at running these mission critical workloads, they're going to choose a service level. And the point of this is just two things. You don't have to memorize all this, but, a premium service level is fairly standard for things that are high performance and most, very demanding, 2K to 5K, 4K IOPS per terabyte, et cetera. For those that are extreme, and we've never seen anybody that say extreme wasn't enough, it could go, 3 times that. And those things that aren't so extreme, it can go lower. And the point of this is that if you start looking at the difference in price, it's a significant difference between, hundreds of dollars a terabyte for the highest performance. And sometimes when people look cloud, they say, well, it's a penny a gigabyte per month. Well, that's for data that doesn't move. And for the workloads that Carm's going to talk about, the data performance is critical. And so that's why there is NetApp Cloud Volumes for GCP and the NetApp technology integrated into Google Cloud to deliver that performance, because these applications, the workloads are so critical. So, we're happy to sit down with clients, help them understand what the workloads are and where to put it and how to do that. And so the last point, I think next to cloud is something that's not intuitive to organizations. When they say, hey, I was running this on my data center, I want to move it to the cloud, we say, okay, you can definitely move it into Cloud Volumes for GCP, or you can move it next to the cloud, and again, in an Equinix or ThinkOn or, other data center, and they have super high performance so that you can use cloud services in their native format, and they can connect directly into a data service that isn't necessarily in the cloud. So lots of options to talk about. We feel like we've got a lot of background and expertise in this area, and we think the fact that NetApp and Google are sponsoring this says those are the sponsors to help solve the problems that that Carm's going to go in and talk about the applications and why they need that performance. So Carm, I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Kent. That was great. And one of the things that we mostly look for when we think about the problem domain. So when you want to move into, let's say, to become a more data-driven decision-making company, or to, maybe you already know that you want to leverage the cloud for your analytics needs as you become a more digitally enabled organization, you would look at, well, what are some of the ways in which I can get access to my data? And so as Kent was mentioning, many organizations have made huge investments in their on-premises data assets, and they store the information into using NetApp suite of applications. And they are already using the cloud or can easily use the cloud as a business continuity solution. So in that particular case, that gives us the added benefit of taking advantage of that data that already exists in the cloud and effectively taking a snapshot of it with ONTAP, for example, and then making that data available to us to be able to start taking advantage of that for data science or analytics purposes. The easy part of this is that Google brings to the table all of these services that allow us to be able to use that data for the purposes of driving your business forward or for analyzing the information assets that you already have available. So, and this is a little bit of a laundry list of things that we can do, but in general on the Google platform, we have an AI suite, which allows us to be able to do effectively anything that's associated with the, I'll call it the data science lifecycle. So everything from machine learning operations, training your data, deploying your models, monitoring your models, all driven from the data that can be made available to us through the data fabric, as Kent was mentioning. So that's a big benefit for us as we think about don't have to move the data. The data is already there for business continuity purposes, for example. And also, probably a big benefit there as well is especially for, I'll call it large scale operations, you may require better performance than you can get out of the cloud. And so that's the other component of that Kent was talking about, was the fact that I can get superior performance and then I can actually process my data more quickly. I can train my models more expediently. So I have the ability to address those high performance needs effectively by leveraging this NetApp suite of tools, which are available to us as well. Then within the context of Google, we can also say, well, I can take that data and process it by using a suite of tools, which include BigQuery as sort of a centralized analytical database, as well as Dataflow, which can be used to ETL your data or ELT your data, depending on how you want to look at it. And then, of course, there are already services available in Google which allow you to be able to do things like vision or object detection through vision systems, and algorithms, speech detection and interpretation, text and natural language processing, as well as even if you're not a data scientist, for example, you can use what's called AutoML, where the data can be explored for the purposes of determining what's the best algorithm to help you realize the benefit that you're looking for with that data. In addition, reporting through Looker and Data Studio, as well as I said before, taking advantage of the hardware speeds in the cloud. So this can be very advantageous for many organizations, especially with large data workloads where they're looking to solve complex problems. But not all problems have to be complex. So I just want to be clear here that it doesn't have to be high performance, high speed. It may just be the fact that you want access to your data in an expedient and convenient way, which can allow you to be able to sort of enter into this data science realm quickly without having to do lots of processing, lots of data movement, which could be related to, maybe some of the things that could prevent you from becoming a data-driven organization. So next I was going to talk quickly about what are some of the characteristics of how Insight works with Google as well as NetApp to be able to drive some of these concepts forward. So if we think about the concept of taking advantage of data AI for the purposes of driving business decision making, just as we talked about, that are supported through the data fabric, all of the different varieties of data can be supported. So all of our different data characteristics, unstructured, public data, private data, structured data through databases or other techniques and mechanisms can be made available for processing or intelligent processing of that information on the Google platform and made available to us through the data fabric. So that's a huge benefit for us. And then beyond that, once we have that information available, we can then do higher order kinds of analysis with it, including feeding our applications or creating automation through things like RPA potentially, or chatbots, and then also moving things forward into AI for edge training, for example, model training, and using it for edge style applications. So there's a lot that we can do with marrying together the access to that data along with the fact that we have all of these services made available to us. As I said before, probably one of the biggest things that prevents organizations from getting to the point where they can take advantage of some of this is, well, two things probably. One is the access to information. So the first thing is it's difficult to figure out where they're going to get the data. And then the second thing is, well, how are we going to train our teams to be able to understand how to be able to perform data science tasks or to process the data so that it can be used for analytics purposes. So one of the things that Insight can help to do is to help enable you to be able to get there faster. A lot of the services that are available within the Google platform, for example, are relatively easy to use, although sometimes you need to think a little bit about, well, what are some of the key characteristics of the solution domain that you would need to think through in order to make this all realistic for you as an organization. And then, of course, at the end of the day, it's not about, say, creating these models and decision-making techniques. It's also about how to manage it and to evolve your capabilities within the organization. And so that's really what we want to focus on with you, is to help to drive your analytics maturity. How do we take advantage of those cloud-based tools? And how do we then enable you to be able to drive forward? So capturing more data through the NetApp suite of tools, making that data available in the cloud, leveraging those cloud data assets to be able to drive your business forward, to create competitive advantage, or to create operational efficiencies as you see fit within your organization. So the idea also is to help you to understand what it is that you want to achieve by doing things like envisioning, creating strategic opportunities and visions, and then, in an iterative way, really just understand how you can launch these things quickly. For example, everything that we've talked about here, we can spin this up really quickly. So we can provide the access to your data through the NetApp suite of applications in a very in an expedient way. And then we can also demonstrate to you by using certain patterns that we have available to us and products that we have available. Things like we call the product lens, which allows us to be able to create mini data environments quickly, so that from the data environment you can then quickly create analytics reports, start training your models, and then be able to demonstrate success very quickly. So this is the idea, is to create acceleration, allow you to be able to take advantage of that data, and allow you to explore, because that's really the essence of the process at the end of the day. So, and this really just sort of represents the, how this all matches within the realm of your environment. And so I would say from a perspective of how do I take advantage of this data that's available to us? There are a number of different pathways that you can take. And I didn't even talk about industry focus, but in the industry focus area, clearly this can work across any industry. And you can be more specific about, and Kent already mentioned this as well, we talked about the fact that if you're looking for, let's say you had to comply with GDPR, data primacy, you had to ensure that the data only existed within a specific geographical area. Then you could align that directly to not only where the data sits, which is supported through the NetApp environment, but also how it's accessible within the cloud by specifying the particular regions where the data may be processed. So you can actually use it to help you to comply with particular data, either data proximity, data primacy, kinds of things that you might have to deal with from a regulatory perspective. So there's a lot of different ways that you can look at this as well in terms of giving you advantage to be able to not move your data all over the place and worry about multiple copies, but also to think about, well, how can I ensure that my data resides where it needs to be in order to not only secure it, but to comply with some of the regulations that you might be faced with. If I think about also as well, like what are all of the things that we can do, I like to show this as well, is just to talk about, well, what are some of those journeys we can take. And not every customer has the same level of maturity in terms of where they are on their journey into analytics or data AI. And so we work with you to just determine where are you in your path, or your journey, and we start with an assessment. So we basically talk about what data is available to you, where is your data, what kinds of business opportunities are you looking to achieve or undertake, and then we help you to define what the path would look like. And there are many ways and offerings that we have that are available that help you to understand how can I get there, and then leverage both the capabilities that we talked about with NetApp and with Google to be able to say, well, how can I realize, for example, an ML ops journey, or how do I understand how to create a machine learning operational pipeline for my manufacturing or retail business? And that's where we would work with you and identify what the needs are, walk you through an accelerated version of how to implement that kind of strategy by leveraging the products that we were discussing today to give you a step forward in terms of this is how you can actually start to enable your organization to be able to drive these capabilities forward. And that's really the essence of how we can take advantage of these awesome technologies to be able to not only just create synergy across the on-premise as well as the cloud environment, but also to make sure that we can operationalize our capabilities, take advantage of performance that can be provided by leveraging the work that's been done by on-premises by organizations like NetApp, and then also ensuring that we can leverage the ease of use as well as the platform as a service style capabilities that are available through organizations like GCP, where this really allows us to be able to come up to speed quickly in terms of data science. So gone are the days of having to worry about hiring a PhD in data science to be able to become data science enabled. We really have the ability to now pull it all together in a very convenient way and get us up to speed quickly, and then grow your footprint. So to be able to learn and mature and to continue to move forward. So I've been talking for quite a bit. So Kent, I wanted to just give you the opportunity to maybe say a few words about some of the features, or to comment on maybe some of the areas that I was describing in terms of data access. So I'll pass off to you just for just a second if there's anything that you wanted to discuss further.
No, I think, I do see, and you see this more closely, that people trying to build these solutions really understand the application, really understand what they're trying to accomplish, and they realize they need fast data. And sometimes they're trying to figure it out, how to get fast data. And really the summary is NetApp has really figured out how to get fast access to this file data and make it available to you anywhere, including the cloud. So, great discussion on what you're trying to do. And if you believe access to data is important to make your job go more quickly and more efficiently, then this is a great topic.
Yeah, exactly. This is, it's really something. I mean, honestly, I've been in the industry for 25 plus years. I don't want to date myself too much, but this feels to me almost like it's the Holy Grail, because one of the challenges that we've had over the course of my career has been, how do I get access to my data? And nobody really has the appetite for trying to move petabytes worth of data or duplicating it in multiple environments just so that I can run my reporting or my analytics capabilities. So these kinds of features, in addition to the performance enhancements and characteristics and deduplication capabilities that can be provided to us, it really provides an operationally effective environment for us to be able to drive the data science and analytics processes within our hybrid environments. And I just think that this is really, it's sort of a maturity of this whole space now as we think about hybrid style architectures, taking advantage of where on-premises environments are strong, as well as taking advantage of where the cloud can be strong, especially with these kinds of services that we've been talking about today. So from just in wrapping up, if we think about what some of these solutions might look like, we talked about sort of combining capabilities across the NetApp's data access model and making it available for data science and AI workloads, the Google Cloud. And one of the things that is probably most important to just mention here in closing is that not all problems are the same. Now, there are ways that we can create sort of, accelerators or sort of get you up to speed really quickly, which is something I think that we can do very effectively, so you can demonstrate value within a short period of time. But I think more importantly, it's also to understand what is the ultimate objective. And so really what we're looking for is, how do we take advantage of the kinds of things that you're looking to do in your business? What is your digital strategy? What is it that you're looking to do in terms of either operational efficiencies or creating competitive advantage for your business? And then we can work with you to be able to help you to get there. And that's really what it's all about. And once we identify what those opportunities are, we can then help you along the path and then help you to get there quickly. So if you'll have access to these slides, I assume, and then you'll have the ability to scan the QR code if you wanted to talk to us in more detail. But Kent and I are available to answer any questions you would have. And we hope that you enjoyed today's conversation. And we certainly look forward to hearing from you.